AI. And just to be sure, AI in general is a good thing. No one is going to start the discussion of, oh, we don't need AI. It's all nonsense. No one needs that. Society is better off without it, because you will not change any kind of progress that is happening in that way just by disliking it. However, I receive quite a number of emails, contacts, social media requests, etc., where people say, I actually get the feeling that certain other aspects of our behavior deteriorate quite quickly. And quite often, unfortunately, some people shared a meme with me where it says that the MIT conducted a study that people who use ChatGPT use less of their brains. Here's the information. That study never took place. It's fake news. It's a meme, nothing else. And I have to be fair here. It's pretty obvious that this is a meme because MIT doesn't publish studies by meme. They would go via probably science magazines or maybe the Washington Post, Financial Times, whatever other magazine it is, and press releases, not by memes. So be sure that when you share something, because quite a number of people shared that on LinkedIn, and it probably wasn't the best choice here. The question now is, how do we deal with any kind of change in our skills due to AI? And when we talk about critical thinking is something where people say, I get the feeling that people take things for granted as soon as they read them on the internet. And a bit too general, but we need to talk about what is happening here and how is AI influencing our ability to make decisions. And of course, the very first thing often is that people ask, do you actually have cases? Do you have cases not taken out of press, but cases you've seen firsthand where I was wildly wrong? And yes, I have seen these cases. And of course, I could tell you about 150 cases only from my clients, but of course, they are under strict NDA, so they're confidential. So I'm going to tell you cases from small to large that actually affected myself. I give you a very simple example. I went for dinner. That is not too unusual, but before dinner, I went to the movies. So I wanted to watch a movie, the Life of Chuck, way better than I thought. So highly recommended here. I went by foot from Albisriederplatz in Zurich, where I live, to the cinema, Arena Cinema, and I asked the AI how long that will take. Because at the moment, I'm documenting everything I do, all the activities, everything I eat, because I'm losing a bit of weight. That was my personal choice. You probably see across the last 100 videos that maybe I lost a bit of weight, more or less, your decision. And suddenly the AI said, yeah, it's about a 12-minute walk. Is it? I lived there for a couple of years now. It's 35-minute walk. When you go quick, it's 30-minute walk, but hardly ever quicker than that, except when you go really fast or march. That's not walking, that's marching. Before someone says, can we make a German joke about marching? Not here, not today, not now. So when this was the very first thing, and you cannot say, hey, sometimes AI is wrong, this just happens. Yeah, and I can just give you an example. Let's say you are a logistics company and you have to deliver goods across countries where you are not knowledgeable about the local circumstances, and you are wrong by 2/3 on distances. You most likely, during a public tender, will hand in something where at the end you have to fulfill a legally binding contract, and you will find out in due course of the project you're running out of money because fuel energy costs are way too expensive, and also all the timings you gave them cannot be held. At least the AI was right on the unit. It used kilometer, not miles, because we use miles in Switzerland. In the UK, we use kilometers in Switzerland. It's rather miles in the UK or in the US. However, still being wrong by 2/3 is quite something. And then I tested a couple of other cities. It was very good in Paris, Madrid, Vienna, Milan, areas I knew where I could also check. But many people say I use AI because it's quicker, because when I have to go to Google Maps and then open it and type in start and finish, and with the AI, I just chat into the AI and I get a result because it has speech recognition. Here we have the very first proper issue, because when you do not double check, and often people say, I don't want to double check, that's what I have the AI for. Here we are with the first issue, and that's only the beginning. So after the movies, I went for dinner. I met a colleague, Lee Warren, and we met at Balance in London. That was a couple of weeks later. And this meeting happened at the moment, of course, due to the food program I am on. I always upload the menu up front, and then I ask the AI, what is the best pick here for my diet plans, for my weight loss plans? And that is my personal choice. It worked brilliantly, hundreds of times. So I upload the PDF, the menu's PDF, and immediately it says, you should pick the C bus. I said, cool, good choice. Sat down. When the waiter arrived, I immediately wanted to order, but he was on his way somewhere else, so he just put the menu on the table. So just out of interest, I looked into it, found out there is no C bus on the menu. It was exactly the menu that you saw online, but no C bars on there. So I told the AI, excuse me, AI, there is no C bars on there. And then the AI said, oh yeah, I just looked on it. You're right, there is no C bars on there. Where I thought, well, maybe you read it in the first place. What about that? So, and then what's your next pick? And then it says chicken burger is the next best pick. So I looked into the menu and there was no chicken burger either. Turns out, although I asked for it in the first place, when I asked the AI, can you read the PDF? And the AI said yes, it was obviously lying to me. When I uploaded a screenshot, all of a sudden, that was working. And that is something which is deeply troubling when you upload certain data files and the system doesn't tell you when it does not work. You probably know from any kind of Windows system since the 1990s, when you open any file which doesn't work, you immediately get an error message or you get very weird sign on the screen which tells you that's not what I wanted. AIs take things and then they may or may not understand what they see, and then they say, yeah, I think my recommendation is this, just do this. And that, of course, is plain dangerous. Just imagine you put a proposal together and you use AI, and suddenly you quote, for example, studies, university studies that do not exist, or you quote lawsuits as a reference that never happened. And by the way, both of these already happened, that companies put tenders out there, handed in proposals for tenders, and then when the client properly checked, they say, look, we can't work with you because what you actually do is you make stuff up, because that's not. And when you then say, yeah, it was the AI, they say, that's your problem, not ours. And by the way, when you now think, what does he have on his wrist? Just to show you here, we have the Manchester Pride weekend where I'm recording this from, for greetings from Manchester. So one is the wristband you need for the whole village there, and the other one is a wristband of Talk Out Loud, a charity about mental health, which I support. So just raising awareness for mental health issues and situations we have to help these people. So the restaurant issue is the second one. It's not about the restaurant here. It's about making stuff up. And when, of course, now people say, yeah, we know AIs hallucinate. Graham Jones at Buckingham University in the UK just published a great blog article on that. About 0.7% of all AI hallucinations, of all AI answers, have some sort of hallucination. When you now say that's almost 1 out of 100. So when I ask 100 questions, which I can quickly do in one day, one is probably partially or completely wrong. Yeah, true. And by the way, science has also said, and that's also a quote from Graham Jones, Buckingham University here, humans have about 7%, so 10 times more. So when you now say, I don't, not me. The problem with hallucinations is we don't realize them. You have something in your mind which you think you remember correctly, but then you arrive and you see it's just not there. I give you a very simple example. I was absolutely sure. I go to Manchester Pride every year to support the Pride movement here. It's very, very important, especially at the moment, to step up for minorities, women, persecuted people, anything. And I had a very strong opinion on in which order the bars are there on Canal Street. Turns out I just mixed two of them up. I mixed them up and I was absolutely convinced I was right. And I was completely wrong on the matter. So you see, the restaurant issue here tells you they can factually make things up. Sometimes you will spot it easily when someone says, oh, the distance between your home and the cinema is 52 chicken. Then someone will say, I don't think chicken is a distance unit, is it? But when someone just says, yeah, it's a 12-minute walk, and you've never been there, you will probably just believe that because you want to save the time and you do not want to double check. And this, by the way, can get way worse with the whole situation. What we have right now in Germany, you have a ton of LinkedIn posts which go on about from 2026, awareness, from 2026. You must have the salary mentioned every single job ad. It's a legal obligation. And by the way, the AI says the same. I looked it up on the AI. And that's exactly the problem. I looked it up as well because I knew that this is not correct. I knew because I deal with recruiting all the time, giving speeches at Europe's largest fair and expo we have in a couple of weeks' time again. And the issue there is that AIs sometimes pick up stuff which is wrong because many people wrote wrong stuff, but they sound very convincing. It is not 100% obligatory in any situation on any job at absolutely anywhere. So people just looked it up on the AI and then repeated it. And suddenly hundreds of people repeat the same nonsense. And by the way, the whole meme thing with MIT published a study, and then you have the image looks quite important. But when you look at the image basically says ChatGPT users use 15% of their brain, and people who don't use ChatGPT use 85% of their brain. you would spot that on the street. You would spot that on the street. When we have a difference of 70% brain use, I mean, some people you think, yeah, you probably really only use 15%. But that is something which is so absurdly, wildly far away from reality. Be sure that you're always spot on the matter. You need to look it up, because this recruiting wrong thing that we got very soon, very quickly, will enter the corporate world. You will have recruiters who make wrong statements because they looked something up on AI and didn't double check and cross check it. So the question now is, where did we lose the critical thinking? And first, of course, not all of us lost it, but some of us lost it. So first, of course, we have to define what does it actually mean. It's always a three-step process. You have an analysis, then you have an evaluation, and then you come to a judgment. And just to be very sure here, when you have, maybe you heard from inspirational, motivational speakers, never judge, never judge, never do judgment. Yeah, and that is another piece of nonsense from motivational, inspirational speakers who, ever since this planet was seen in the universe, never said anything that actually sustainably changed life for the better on a factual or scientific basis, which is why they are motivational, inspirational speakers. Analysis means you look at the different components of what you see there. Then you have to evaluate that. You also have to critically evaluate the sources. I just give you a very simple example. When you look into, I don't know, the Socialist magazine on the one hand and Fox News on the other hand, you will probably see that you have two extremes on a certain matter with strong opinions on both sides. And you have to critically analyze who said that. As a self-employed entrepreneur, someone who gives job to others, gives work to others, someone who is part of the Liberal Party in Switzerland, of course, that gives a certain bias. And of course, when I write scientifically, I try to take that out as much as I can. However, when I have discussion with other entrepreneurs or people on a political spectrum, we disagree on certain matters based on our evaluations of the exact same thing. Analysis, evaluation, judgment. You have to come to a conclusion, and that is what critical thinking is about. However, why do many people rely on AIs? They say it's just so practical. It saves me so much time. I just look, Niels. I just give you the very honest opinion. I don't have time. And then people say something like, Niels, when I go on Google, I get 15 results, maybe 20 or 30. All of them I have to read through, and then I have to stick to whatever I get out of that, or just ask the AI, and the AI says that's it. And that's exactly the problem. The one versus many situation. When you go on Google or any kind of other search engine, Bing, Yahoo, whatever it is, then you find many sources and you can make up your mind about that from different angles. And that is what critical thinking is about. When an AI tells you this is the only way to go, especially when the AI is very sure, it doesn't mean that it's factually correct. And then people say, but I want it to be correct because when I have to double check, I can do the whole thing from the very scratch. And that's why we have science. That's why we have science. We distinguish between primary and secondary sources. Primary sources are where the study is, where the real facts are, or at least as close to the facts as it possibly can be, as little bias as possible, peer-reviewed scientific magazines, whatever you take there. When people say, I go to primary sources, for example, Wikipedia. Yeah. Probably you saw that Wikipedia quotes studies, which tells you it's not a primary source, because primary sources are exactly on the matter. Wikipedia already is a secondary source. The peer review there, by the way, most of the authors come from a non-diverse background, so that already puts a pretty strong bias into Wikipedia, but that's a completely different issue. The primary versus secondary source issue is a valid one, and I know it takes time. I did an MBA, did an executive MBA, now writing my third master degree in a Master of Science, probably planning to do a doctorate afterwards, and that takes time. If you just ask AI, the results you will get are reasonably poor. On a scientific level, not anywhere near what you need to write, I can tell you. So be sure that you really stick to proper sources and that you look at them and then balance your views and then make up your mind from there. And of course, now some people will say, how do I get that into any kind of organization? We don't have any time left right now. How could I ever do that? And of course, that is a very reasonable point. When we now talk about how to implement that in organizations, number one is always awareness. And I cannot stress it often enough, the $49 pound euro online class, which people should watch during the lunch break or in the afternoon or on their mobile phone or listen to it in an MP3 during their drive back and forth from work or during a podcast. That is not going to make the cut. It's not going to make the cut. I am very sorry. It's not going to make the cut. The implementation here needs to be close to the matter that people have an interaction with a professionally educated person. So people need to be qualified. 98% of people talking about AI on the market are not qualified. I got my education from the University of Pennsylvania and Wharton Business School. I can tell you, you can look up these institutions. These courses were bloody hard, and I'm now adding another qualification from Vanderbilt University, also not the worst university on this planet. Takes a lot of time, it's a lot of work, and it's bloody hard, to be fair. But it is very good. When people say, oh, I just read this article and that, and here are the top 100 prompts for a great sales executive to find the best clients with passive income to write cold emails where 98% open your email, lies left, right, and center. And unfortunately, I have to tell you, when people now say, I'm talking about AI, I really look on what is their experience, but also what is their qualification. No qualification, you can talk to the wall. I have absolutely no time about your opinion, because proper education is the key. Otherwise, there is no way you get access to scientific evidence and the real facts without going to science and the real facts. You cannot just sit there and say, I go through my LinkedIn and then I pick up a couple of postings and say, oh, look at me, I'm now an AI expert. Speed of light might be really fast, but not as fast as people today think they're an AI expert. So be sure that the qualifications are on a level where they actually should be. And I now know what the issue always is. The issue is always time. People say, I don't have time to double check. I don't have time to cross check the AI because I use the AI to save time. And by the way, we don't have time to any kind of professional education. And then my question always is, so, but you have time to tidy up the mess that you might have created by either putting in a logistics bid to a public tender, a proposal where all the distances are wrong, and you have the time to correct everything that the AI made up, and you embarrass yourself in front of clients and customers, including the reputation and relational damage. You have time for that, and you have the time to deal with all of this, because then you have to background check afterwards and rewrite everything. So you have time for all of that, but not time to get a proper implementation of a sustainable AI approach into the organization. Well, if you still say, yeah, we still don't have the time, then please do not call yourself a great leader. Please call yourself anything, but maybe call yourself some manager. That will be the most appropriate thing, and that's already the most polite term I can use here. Awareness, qualification, and time. That is the key. When you implement everything, as we just talked about, even in a very brief way for smaller organizations or in another way in larger organizations, I can tell you what's never the best pick, because of course it happened immediately. When people said, oh, the European Union has this new guideline, people need AI education. So Niels, can you do like for 49 euros, just like a presentation, just say something? We don't actually care what you say, but we need to tick that box, right? We need to tick a box that we educated people. Can you do that? And the answer is no. We have a guideline about fees, and I just stick to that. I'm not a rule breaker there. So very important is you need to take a quality approach, because if you don't, the catastrophe is in the making, and you will either find out way too late or never at all, because customers will not say, hey, I did something wrong. Customer will simply say, yeah, we decided for someone else. And you probably will not find out ever why this happened. Be sure to pick a quality approach on AI, and be sure that critical thinking stays up, and everything will become better in your organization, because the best solution is never AI on their own or the humans on their own. It's always AI produces something and humans optimize it for their usage, including the double check and cross checking. That's, by the way, how I find out that I ordered something on the menu almost that is not there. And also maybe I probably went a distance in 12 minutes, which I walked in 35. No, it was simply wrong. And I found out by coincidence, but also due to the education I received. I always double and triple check what's on there with the AI. AI can make good suggestions, but it hallucinated quite a bit. And by the way, we humans do even more. Stick to quality and everything will go well. I wish you all the best doing so. And when you now say, oh, I need a couple of more questions to be posed, a few times. So first, of course, feel free to leave a like here when you look at me, when you watch this on YouTube. Leave a like here, subscribe to my channel, put the little alarm bell there so you don't miss out on future videos, put a comment there. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. When you listen to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, feel free to leave a review there. Thank you very much for 5 stars, and recommend this podcast to friends, colleagues, anyone around you, because this week it is big announcement, 100,000 listeners. Probably you saw it on social media. I posted it there as well. We reached for 100,000 listeners after 5 years. I started this 5 years ago, and I thought, let's hope that we get to anywhere to 5 to 10,000, and now we are at 100,000 listeners. Absolutely amazing. Thank you very much for your ongoing support here. A couple of things we only have on YouTube, for example, are the leadership tips called the YouTube Shorts. As the name it says, YouTube Shorts are only on YouTube. Who could have thought? So it really pays off to put a little alarm bell there, because you will not miss out on any future episodes and the leadership tips that we have. Usually a couple of leadership tips per week we publish here. When you listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, feel free to follow and subscribe here. And also you can go to my website, nb-networks.biz, and then you see what I do for a living. When you now say, I really like to discuss something, but not in public because it's something about my company, it's confidential and needs to stay confidential. Everything I have via email stays confidential, of course. When you put it out in public, of course, others can read it, but my email inbox is 100% confidential. nb@nb-networks.com. Feel free to send me an email, and I'm looking forward to being in touch with you there. If you look for live sessions, yes, we have them. expert.nb-networks.com. You put your email address in there, and then no worries, you receive only one email every Wednesday morning. It's 100% content, ad-free guarantee. And in this email, you get first free access, no paywall, to all the articles in English and German, more than 400 in each language. Then full access to all the podcasts. So that's the second positive aspect here. English and German podcast, more than 400 episodes published here. And of course, you see the live session, which we only publish on the Leadership Letter. There is no other way to access them, so I look forward to seeing you there. Of course, you can also follow and connect with me on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Looking forward to being in touch with you there. However, the most important thing is always the last bit that I say. Apply what you heard in this podcast and videocast, because only when you apply what you heard, you will see the positive change that you obviously want to have and want to achieve in your organization. Feel free to contact me anytime when you have something very specific. You need training, speaking, coaching, consulting, mentoring, project interim management. Very happy to talk about that. But also, if you just have a question, just text me, send me an email, and then we take it from there. I'm looking forward to hearing from you there. At the end of this podcast, there's, as usual, at the end of this videocast, there's only one thing left for me to say. Thank you very much for 100,000 listeners. Happy Pride from Manchester. And for today, thank you very much for your time.